Okay, enough of that. Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, the official podcast of entertainment website We Got This Covered. I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And we're here to talk about Doctor Who one last time until Christmas.
Yes. It feels weird that we've got 5 episodes. We have these 5 weeks, and then the season thing is done until Christmas.
Yeah, well, hopefully one day they'll air this show right again.
Yeah, I don't... Why do TV shows do this bullshit now? Why can't we just have you do your, 12 episode run in, one chunk, or whatever your season length is, just do it in a chunk, get it over with. Why does it have to be split up? Everything's doing it now.
I know, and I know the reason in American television, and it's because, for Breaking Bad, for instance, they're doing their 5th season in 2 8-episode chunks in 2 different years. Basically, it's 2 seasons. I mean, the first half of Breaking Bad season 5 is just a season of television. It's a beginning, a middle, and an end. But why they do that is because then they don't have to pay the actors for 2 seasons, and they don't have to. Usually, for instance, Bryan Cranston in his contract, because he's a famous Emmy-winning actor, every time there's a new season, they have to give him a pay raise. But if they call it 1 season, they only have to pay him, this amount of money, and they don't ever have to raise it. So that's why they do that. But that doesn't apply to Doctor Who because it's the BBC. It's a government-funded thing. They're not doing this as multiple seasons. They're just doing it in sort of little chunks here and there. I don't know why Doctor Who does it. It's weird.
It's pissing me off.
Especially because I guess what bothers me about it is BBC had to spend a fortune marketing this season. They marketed the hell out of it. Mm-hmm. But that only counted for 5 weeks. They're going to have to start it all up again for the Christmas special. Assumedly there's going to be another break after that. Then they're going to have to start the marketing machine up again. Is that really good in the long run? I mean, that's a lot of marketing money to put at 1 season.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's 3 different budgets, I would assume.
It's totally pissing me off.
I
don't like this. Didn't work last season. Doesn't feel like... I mean, this feels like it's working more this time. It kind of makes sense.
It does.
Hopefully it makes sense this time. We don't know.
Yeah.
It felt like it made sense last time, too.
But then it didn't.
Yeah, maybe they'll do the same thing again. It's this is really huge. It's we're going to have this gap of time. Things are going to be different. It's nope, episode's going to start right where this one ended. This, break is fucking pointless.
All right. I mean, we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about our predictions, I guess, for the next half of the season. But in any case, let's introduce this podcast really quick. Today on the podcast, we are going to be talking about the Doctor Who mid-season finale, The Angels Take Manhattan.
Almost mid-season. It's 5 episodes.
There's 9 episodes left.
Not quite mid-season finale.
But that's the only really word we have for it.
How can you have a mid-season finale anyways? You can't have a finale halfway through. That doesn't make sense.
Which is why I'm more apt to just say this was a season. It was a really, really short season, but it's over. Anyway, we're going to be talking about The Angels Take Manhattan in depth, as we usually do with Doctor Who. We're going to do a sort of overview of this chunk of the season as a whole at the end. We will not have... This will be our main topic this week again. We told you last week that we were going to do our Indiana Jones thing this week. Didn't happen. Again, I was way too busy with stuff. We promise we'll do that next week. We're less busy, and we won't have Doctor Who to talk about, so we'll need a big topic. Indiana Jones, I think that's probably for the better, because then we won't have to compress time at all. We can just talk about it.
Because we compress time so often on this our very short, concise podcast. It's always it's around 30 minutes, a nice, good, small chunk.
Yeah.
That's how we like to do it here.
That's true. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to be talking about The Angels Take Manhattan. If you have not seen this episode, don't listen to the podcast. We will include spoilers, and this is the last episode to feature Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill as Amy Pond and Rory Williams. So, let's start with quick reactions to The Angels Take Manhattan, written by Stephen Moffat, directed by Nick Horan. Sean?
I thought it was a pretty good episode, but I don't think it worked as I don't think any of these episodes so far have worked like this as a part of a season. I think it's kind of failing as a whole in that sense. And then I also don't think it was it was a very strange way to end those companions. I'm not entirely... I don't know how I feel quite about it yet. I'm not positive on it right now. That might change in time. It's a very strange way to end the companion stories.
It is.
Right now, I don't like it.
Well, that's basically where I am. How I've been saying it is I think in the episode itself, in a vacuum, Stephen Moffat and the actors nailed the emotions of this exit as well as they possibly could. I think he constructed an ending that was emotionally hard-hitting. It sort of went back to the core of Amy and Rory and what their relationship with the Doctor is and sent them out on a note that was emotionally palpable in the moment. But for me, when I start thinking about it and when I started writing about it the other night for my review, it frustrates me to no end because I do not like the sort of tenor of this ending for these characters. And I do hold these particular characters and this exit up to a higher standard than other companions because they've been held up to a higher standard.
Yeah.
I think these are probably the first companions of the modern era that in 20, 30 years' time are going to be on that same pedestal as sort of the classics, like Sarah Jane or the Brigadier or some of those, because that's sort of the impact they had on pop culture surrounding Doctor Who. And I also happen to like them a lot, obviously.
Yeah,
They're my favorites of the modern era. And so I do kind of expect a lot of this, and I'm going to hold it up to a higher standard.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, also you need to, for me, where I'm kind of coming at it is that with the new show, they've made the companions so hugely important to the show. It's almost more about the companions than the Doctor. Like, it's moved more towards the Doctor as the new show's progressed.
Yeah.
But it's still so companion-focused, so companions leaving is a huge deal. I mean, like when Rose left in the second season of the new show, that was huge. And they did, even though I wasn't a huge fan of Rose, I think they did the Rose leaving stuff
fantastically.
Yeah,
that was
really,
one of the best
really
things
well.
Russell T Davies ever did.
And just like when Donna left, that was great. Like they nailed that really. They really love the tragic, sad endings for new companions, where that wasn't a big thing back in the day. But yeah, the companions are so hugely important. So, and especially these ones, because Amy and Rory have been around much longer than the other companions for the new show. So
they're much more intricately tied to the Doctor.
Yeah, specifically to this version of the Doctor, because Matt Smith came on the show with Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill, and
as the 11th Doctor said in last week's episode, yours was the first face this face saw.
Yeah,
which was a good moment.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start at the ending, and we'll get into we're
going to start at the ending. Okay.
Because I think the conversation has to start with how they exit and how we view it.
Okay.
Because this is the bigger discussion, and we should say up front, we've been reading reactions around the internet, and Sean and I are in the definite minority here.
Yeah, from everything I've seen.
And I think so. That's kind of interesting to me, and I guess I'll say where I'm coming from on this first.
Okay.
Is that you may remember an episode from Season 6 called The God Complex, which was a fantastic episode of Doctor Who late in the season's run, where it was the main episode was set in a hotel, sort of creepy space hotel thing. Lots of good stuff going on in it. But at the end... Yep, that was cool.
Yeah.
But at the end, the Doctor decides he's going to leave Amy and Rory back in London and try to set them on a path where they can lead their own lives. And not that they can't be friends anymore, but that they can't be on the TARDIS all the time.
Yeah.
And at the time, in my review, I wrote, I hope this is it for Amy and Rory. That doesn't mean I never want to see them again. It's okay for companions to come back for a one-off adventure or something. That's always good. But I didn't need them to be regulars past that point, especially because, not just because the God Complex did that well, and that episode did that fantastically well. If you want a good example of how to exit characters within an episode, that one does it better than I think The Angels Take Manhattan did.
No, I completely agree.
But it also does it in a contextual sense because the entirety of Season 6 thematically was leading to that moment. I mean, there are other themes at play in Season 6, but that one is really a big one of, Amy and Rory becoming too infatuated with the TARDIS and the Doctor being too attached and them sort of all having to realize they can be friends, but they need to lead their own lives. And so you agree with me, probably, Sean, that when that happened, it felt natural. Like this is a good note to go out on.
Yeah, that was a really good companion leaving story.
Yes.
Even though it wasn't the companion leaving story.
And it felt right to Amy and Rory to me because I don't ever feel these characters were the kinds that were introduced in a sense that they needed a tragic or semi-tragic conclusion.
I mean most companions in Doctor Who, they don't have a tragic. Like they just kind of leave. They find out it's like, oh, I can do good here. Or I randomly fell in love with this dude on this planet, so I'm going to stay with him, which is a weirdly common thing to happen. But yeah, they tend to decide we're going to leave the Doctor. That's generally what happens.
And so the God Complex, I thought, was the best version of that. And so I will admit, going into this season, that was the baggage I took into this, was I questioned, A, the need for another 5 episodes with Amy and Rory, and B, if you could actually kick them off the show, bring them back for 5 episodes, and somehow build to a better conclusion than you did in the God Complex. And they didn't.
No, they definitely did. I totally agree.
Because these 5 episodes for Amy and Rory were largely extraneous. That does not mean I did not enjoy watching these characters in these episodes, because Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill are fantastic in these roles. And I think the writers really know, they have a handle on these characters.
Yeah.
But from an arc standpoint, I think they brought them to their natural conclusion, and then brought them back, and then had to bring them to another conclusion that for me, in The Angels Take Manhattan, was not natural or organic in any way. It was, all right, this is the last episode they're on. We've got to find a way to kick them off fast. It wasn't built to. It didn't reference. It wasn't specific to these characters in any way. I mean, yes, the Angels are a big thing for the Stephen Moffat era. They have nothing to do with Amy and Rory.
Yeah.
So there was nothing personal about this. It was nothing about their arc. I've seen some people trying to suggest that, it was a perfect ending because it, reinforced their love for each other. They've done that a million times.
We've done the thing where Amy has to choose. We've done the thing where Amy has to choose between Rory and the Doctor so many times that it's not even a thing anymore. She's just it's Rory. We did this like halfway through season 5, for fuck's sake.
We did, and that's my problem. I haven't minded them repeating that so far. It's just here where people are trying to tell me that it's like, no, it's the right conclusion because Amy finally chooses Rory over the Doctor. Episode 7, Amy's Choice. She did that. It's called Amy's fucking Choice.
Yeah.
That's the episode title.
She chose. It's like that was half of what season 5 was all about, was Amy trying to figure out what she wants to do, whether she wants to stay with Rory or go with the Doctor.
And that was the point of having them on in season 6, was there was a new dynamic where she was attached to Rory more than the Doctor, but they, as a couple now, could have fun with the Doctor.
Yeah.
And then there really was no new dynamic for Season 7, except that they're going to be around for a little while, and then we're going to kick them off, because I guess we need to.
Yeah.
And so that's my biggest problem with The Angels Take Manhattan, and with their exit, is that, and we'll get into the particulars of it all in a minute, but
as that's possible to do.
Yeah. When they left, and when it was over, I didn't feel like anything, this had never built anything. It didn't feel like it felt right in context. It was just like, they're gone now, and okay, that didn't leave me satisfied. I guess that's the word, is that you go back to an episode like The God Complex, if that had been it, I would have been 100% satisfied. This, I feel, not very satisfied at all with how they left, and how this episode respected their legacy on Doctor Who. And I actually want to get this out of the way right away, is I like, in broad strokes, what they did with Amy at the end. I think it was a good idea to sort of end with a little recap of their adventures and a focal point on young Amy to bring it full circle. That was a nice moment.
Yeah.
But then to basically say, fuck you to Rory in the end, where he just, 5 minutes before the end of the episode, he's like, that's my name on the tombstone, BAM! And he's gone, and we will never see Arthur Darvill again. We don't even see like a little montage of him and Amy living their lives out in the past. He's just gone. It's like Stephen Moffat forgetting that Rory was a character on this show.
That Rory was, like, other than the Doctor, the best character on the show for the past 2 years.
He was great.
Rory is so great.
He's great. And what's so great about Rory is that he started as the kind of guy you would never imagine would be this kind of companion.
Yeah.
This iconic companion. But Arthur Darvill was so good, and they found such good beats for that character to play. And for the last season and a half at least, he's been, to me, and I think to the show, on equal footing with Amy.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Totally. And so, but then in the ending, the episode was entirely about Amy, and Rory's thrown to the side. He has a couple really good moments in this episode, but it's more about Amy and her relationships, and in the end, she's the one who gets to write the letter. Rory's an afterthought. He's blipped out of existence, and Arthur Darvill's last line on Doctor Who is that my name on a tombstone? That frustrates me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can look at this episode and say that's okay, unless you didn't like Rory, and if you didn't like Rory, what were you doing watching Doctor Who for the last 2 years?
What are you doing as a person?
Yeah.
It's Rory! Come on!
So, where do you want to take it? I mean, do you agree with my assessment of all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's really weird because we watched the episode of, like, we didn't watch the episode together or anything. We texted each other, like, 2 text messages about it, and we have, like, the exact same opinion. I don't know how that happened. And we're, like, the only, like, seriously, I've been on a bunch of different message boards. I've been, like, on Reddit. I looked on a bunch of IGN message boards. Everyone really loves this episode, and we are apparently the 2 people who are like, no, it didn't really work for me.
Well, let's take a step back and look at that then, because we both agree there are some very good things in this episode.
Yeah.
And I think we agree that how they stage and play some of the exit scenes is really well done. And I can definitely see someone, if they are maybe not as analytically focused on this show as we are, just getting swept up in the emotions, especially in that graveyard scene where Amy's saying goodbye and the Doctor is just shaking apart, basically. Matt Smith plays that scene amazing, where he's in the graveyard, he has no idea what to do, and it's a really nice beat for the Doctor to play where he's in a scenario where he literally has no sense of place or anything. Mm-hmm. And he's, like I said, it just feels like he's shaking apart at the seams, and Amy is, I think Karen Gillan plays that. That may be one of her best played scenes of Doctor Who ever, where she's expressing through sort of the distraught how strong Amy has become, and just saying, in this split-second decision, I can do the best thing for myself and for my husband. And I think that was a really good moment, and I can see getting swept up in that, especially with how well that scene was directed, and Murray Gold's music, which is some of the best he's ever written for the show. And then I think because they bring it all back full circle, it's a very sentimental ending, and I can see getting swept up in that if you're a casual viewer of Doctor Who or something. But even critics who I think are on our level of analytical analyzing have not gotten into these issues with it.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets a little weird for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't see what most people see I mean, even then, while I liked the graveyard, and I think the graveyard scene was done really well, it didn't really affect me. I think mostly just because at that point they were dealing with so much like crazy, stupid, nonsensical time stuff, and that's like kind of the danger with Stephen Moffat, where sometimes he straddles that line really well. Like with Blink, he did the time travel stuff really well.
11th Hour, their introduction.
Yeah, the 11th Hour. He did it really well. But you go too far into it, and then it's just crazy technobabble to try to explain away plot points that is just really convenient for your plot.
Well, and maybe that's where we want to take this next, is the particulars. And I think a big question here is, did Amy and Rory need one of Stephen Moffat's Rubik's Cube episodes to leave? I don't think so.
No.
And I think that's one of the reasons why you and I like The God Complex, is that was decidedly not a Stephen Moffat episode. It was a very human, down-to-earth episode.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Doctor Who has big fantastical elements.
It has a Minotaur in it.
Right.
It's a space Minotaur, I should say.
But all things
That's
considered,
not a space Minotaur that isn't exactly the same species as the other space Minotaurs that have been on Doctor Who. I always loved that. That it was like, he wasn't quite the same as the Nymons from Horn of the Nymons. He was just kind of like related to that race. I like how there's two related races of space Minotaurs in Doctor Who.
Why can't that be the next spin-off? Sarah Jane Chronicles is over. Let's do the Space Minotaur adventures.
Totally. Watch them sweep across the galaxy and just ravage the whole civilizations.
You would have these two.
Watch this show.
I think you'd have the two like connected species. They'd be kind of like rivals. They'd have like different ships. You'd have like different crews of Space Minotaurs. They'd always be getting into like contests.
Yeah.
All right, back to Doctor Who. So,
what are you talking about, Doctor Who?
Yeah. Okay. So, plot of the episode and how they're kicked out. Let me see if I can explain this as well as I can. And then maybe you can take a shot at it.
Yeah, it's good that you're taking the first shot, because this is a hard thing to do.
All right. So, very simple sort of basis to the idea is that the angels, the way they kill you, they zap you back in time and you live to death. We knew that from Blink, so that's a pre-established thing. We all get it. And basically what they do in this hotel is they blink people back in existence. They stay in that hotel until they're old and die, and they can feed off the energy, and they have it cordoned off at every exit. So, yeah, I kind of get that part of it. It's still it's convoluted but simple enough.
Yeah, it's like that could be its own plot of Doctor Who without having to deal with companions leaving. It would have been a good episode.
I agree. I think that's actually one of the problems, is mixing it all together kind of hurts the angel story, but again, we'll get into that later. So, they do this to Rory. He is zapped back in time, or he's going to be zapped back in time. That's the important part. He has not yet been zapped back in time, but Giant Statue of Liberty Angel will zap him back in time, and so they find the room with old Rory in it. He dies when he sees Amy, and so that means it's a fixed point now, or something like that, because that's a new rule, apparently.
Love the fixed point in time bullshit that they try to pull out with the new Who.
Yeah, okay. And it's inconsistent. I mean, it's very insane.
I didn't notice it, it's like, this has to be a fixed point in time, because we wrote ourselves into a corner. We forgot we have time travel stuff to solve these problems. Fixed point in time, you can't fucking change it. It's like, you can't do that anymore.
So anyway, it's a fixed point because he knows the future or something, which now knowing the future is bad. So he knows the future, so that it's going to be hard to evade it, but he and Amy are adamant that they can change the future if they work together, and another good moment there. And so they decide they're going to escape, but Rory winds up being trapped by the by the giant Statue of Liberty angel, and so he's a couple seconds away from being blinked back into time, and then the whole thing will start a cycle again, and he'll be trapped. So he decides he's going to jump off the building, and at this point, I just want to say Rory has one of my favorite Doctor Who lines ever, or at least Rory lines ever, is she says to him, "You think you'll just come back to life?" And he says, "When don't I?" That was great.
Rory was so good in that scene.
Yes. I mean, this is a good scene overall, even though it's the height of convolutions here.
Yeah.
So, while they're keeping their eyes on it, sort of, they eventually take their eyes off and nothing happens. We'll ignore that.
The Statue of Liberty angel doesn't do anything. It just sort of, stares at you.
Yeah. So anyway, he's going to jump off the building, and that will create a paradox, because if he's dead, he can't die in the future, and this will apparently destroy all the angels, because now that's what paradoxes do, bitches.
Yeah,
once upon a time, paradoxes did nothing. Once upon a time, paradoxes brought the Nazgul down on Earth.
Once upon a time, the paradoxes were like if two of the same people are from different points of time touch each other, it causes a big explosion of Archon energy.
Yeah, but now paradoxes mean all the angels will die because this place can no longer exist. Technobabble, technobabble, technobabble.
Yeah.
So he's going to jump off, and Amy says, "Well, I'll just jump off with you." And they argue back and forth. Again, actually, very nice scene.
Yeah,
between the two of them.
It was a really good scene.
Yeah.
They played it off really well.
Right, and so they jump off, and again, the staging here. I mean, Nick Huron's direction is great. They jump off, and it's sort of a big moment. The paradox starts, and suddenly they're back in the graveyard. Why they're back in the graveyard? I don't know why that's the inception point for all this.
Because there's a grave there. That's Rory's grave. It's dramatic. But,
now, here's the part I don't understand, and I cannot reason out, no matter how much I think through this, is one angel survives, and it knows right where Rory is, and it's right there ready to blink him back in time. And so Rory says his last line, he's blinked away, and Stephen Moffat pisses on Arthur Darville's grave. And so he's gone, and Amy turns around and says, okay, well, if I just blink, I'll go back in time and I'll be with him. There's extra space on the graveyard. That's the most sensible thing anyone says in this episode, because that makes perfect sense on a certain level. I mean, that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. We're past all the paradox shit now, so she can do this. What doesn't quite make sense is that the doctor says, because it's a paradox fixed point, I can never go back there, and we'll talk about that issue later. We'll just say that's the episode's logic, is that because it's a whole paradox issue, he cannot travel back there again. The time energy would destroy New York, so he can't do that. So if she goes back in time, he will never see her again. He will never see Rory again. They will be able to live out their lives in peace, but they will be away from the doctor. They'll never get to go back to their homes, their families again, whatever. But she decides to do this because she's got to be with Rory, so she turns to the doctor, says, "Raggedy Man, goodbye." Another nice touch.
Yeah.
And she's gone. The doctor is, heartbroken. Was that a good enough explanation, Sean?
That was pretty good. I want to add some points here. I'll do quickly my version. So, okay. Dr. Amy and Rory, they're in Manhattan, 2012. They're just chilling out. Just there's nothing going on. They're just hanging out in Manhattan. They're having a little picnic. They're having some fun. The doctor just happens to be reading a crime thriller written by his wife, who is the daughter of his companions, River Song. He just happens to be reading that book, which also is the book that's going to predict all the events that is going to play out, and is also one of the books that causes fixed point in timeness, which I don't know why they decided to do that. Just, not write the truth in the book and change all that shit. But whatever, ignore that. Rory decides it's Rory's going to go. He's going to get, some tea or something for them. This is the British. And he goes off, and then he just randomly happens to get teleported back in time by an angel. Where he gets teleported back to happens to be right where River is, in the same fucking time, same fucking place. They take him right to where River is. His fucking daughter just happens to be there. They just happen all this just happens to happen right there.
And that's one of my
huge
biggest
fucking
issues.
The whole setup for the episode is this huge, massive, honking fucking coincidence. Why the fuck is River even there? Why?
And this is what we mean when we say it doesn't feel earned, or doesn't feel built up in context, is that the whole episode is predicated on coincidences. So it by its own logic cannot be earned through the natural course of events on Doctor Who, right?
Yeah.
Continue.
So then that happens. Then basically it just goes on as you said, where it's okay, we find out the angels are sending people back in time, and they keep them all in this building. There's also some bullshit about, the angels are sending people back in time so much that the TARDIS can't land in Manhattan. Okay, that's where it starts for me, where it's once that's we're treading in this water now of very vague, arbitrary. I hate to use this phrase, but timey-wimey. It's that's what it's this timey-wimey bullshit that's there's no grounding for it because it's so completely made up and arbitrary.
I mean, we have seen the TARDIS travel from one universe to another. I think it can deal with multiple times. In last season, it did that. It did that not 12 episodes ago.
Yeah, so and that's just this is kind of where it starts. Then you've got all the stuff you got. Rory. They find really old Rory, and then that's where I'm trying to figure out this fixed point in time stuff because. If you know the future, you can't change it because then the future will be changed, and then you can't know to have the future that it would have been changed in that way, which is kind of what they dealt with last season with the Doctor dying, and then he just does the whole Tesselecta shit. That's so the same events play out, and you just had wrong assumptions about them, which is kind of which is kind of where I start with why is the book. I don't know why River has to write the book in that way. Why would River have written the book like that? Why would she have written a book that predicts those chain of events? Because it doesn't help them because they don't want to read the book.
Well, here's my issue with it. It's a Terminator time logic thing, which is not how Doctor Who time has ever worked.
Yeah.
Where the book exists basically in all points in time because it has to. So the book has to exist for this adventure to start, but the adventure has to start for the book to exist. It's sort of like John Connor has to send his father back to fuck his mother so he can exist and send his father back. Yeah. It's an elliptical structure, but Doctor Who does not deal in elliptical structures because
that's so annoying to try to deal with because then you're dealing with fate.
Right, because, and I mean, that's the two different sort of time travel, in broad strokes, the two different kinds of time travel. You have fixed time travel, or you have malleable time travel. Doctor Who is malleable.
Very much so. Three explanations for the Loch Ness Monster says so. Yeah, so, unlike in Terminator, in Doctor Who, there is actually no fate but what you make for yourself.
Right. So the book cannot exist.
And then also, it's just... Because then they also how they use the book is they read the book with how they're going, and it's just another thing where it's like it just feels like come on you couldn't have. It's like it's like that scene in what's the Spaceballs where they look ahead 5 minutes at the tape to find out what they're going to do. That's what they do in this basically with the book. It's just come on, you can't just come up with a good way of them being able to figure out. Oh, Rory's in the basement. You don't need to read that in the fucking book. Just check out the basement. You're in the building. You don't need to read the book to to investigate that.
I kind of liked the book plot device until the ending where it became impossible to exist, and it just it frustrated me. It's I thought it was this is kind of a neat idea. It's a Stephen Moffat kind of thing. I'm enjoying this idea, but there was no payoff to it, and that's my problem with it, I guess. Mm-hmm. But I agree with what you're saying, though, too, is that yes, I thought of the Spaceballs thing, too, because how can you not?
Yeah, because it's the exact same situation. Then what? Okay, then you go, they're on the rooftop, there's this is another point where I don't... none of this makes sense with the paradox, where Amy and Rory are on the roof, Rory knows he's going to die in the building, so he's going to kill himself before he gets old and dies in the building because of the angels. Statue of Liberty is there scowling at them because, fuck it, it's New York icon and it's a statue, so we're doing Weeping Angels, so okay, whatever. So then they jump off, create a paradox because they died, but they didn't die, so there was no paradox because the paradox meant that they lived, and that completely destroyed the entire place. Presumably killed all the angels except for one angel that just happens to be standing in the graveyard where they all are and is a fucking asshole and teleports Rory. But it's actually kind of a really nice angel because then happens to just teleport Amy to the exact same time and place as Rory is for no reason whatsoever. We know that the angels can displace people in space as well as time because that happened earlier in the episode. So the angel's kind of like a dick, but a nice dick. It's I'm going to remove you from all of your loved ones except for your wife, Rory.
You've just committed genocide to my species, but
I'm not going to. You can stay with your wife.
I'll take He's taking the high road. We can let that one slide.
He's a nice angel, but just all the paradox stuff where the paradox makes it so that the building can never exist. Why does it have to be that the building never exists? I don't understand why. It seems like that's such a huge... That would have affected everything. That, now this whole building and this entire race of angels doesn't exist. Erases all of that because Rory was supposed to die, but he didn't die. And then also the Doctor has a line where he says, to create a paradox, you have to have a huge amount of energy, which... I don't know why you just have to do something that can't possibly happen. But whatever. But they don't. They don't have a huge amount of energy. They just jump off a fucking building.
But Sean, their love is the energy.
Yeah, well, fuck. It's like...
I've probably gotten that comment on the blog.
That's what they basically hinted at, because, like, right when the doctor says that, Rory was like, Amy grabbed his hand and said something that wasn't as cheesy as it could have been, but was basically that same thing.
I have the line somewhere here. It's, yeah, well, I'll find it in a minute. Oh, I won't let them take him. That's what we got. Bless you, Karen Gillan, for making that writing sound good.
That's the huge amount of energy that they generate. I won't let them take them. So
right. Anyway.
So that's where the problem with the whole episode lies, is that all the crucial plot points rely on wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Like, that's how the story is written. Like, the whole conceit of the episode is just like this huge fucking coincidence. Then they find a book that just helps them read the plot points so that they can follow the plot points along in their own story. And then everything gets fixed by something that doesn't make sense by its very nature. That's not supposed to make sense.
And then, I mean, and I think a lot of the thematic things even built into this episode don't pan out perfectly, because I see what the book's purpose is about the nature of endings and stories and all this, but I don't know if it comes together for me as well as it should at the end with sort of those themes, because again, that's kind of the theme that just kind of comes in with this episode, and it's almost to me too self-aware of this as the end.
Yeah.
Because it comes out of nowhere. It's like they didn't build up to this ending. It's just like, this episode, they just have to start screaming at you from the beginning, this is the end.
Yeah, they really telegraph it hard at the beginning. It's like, this is going to be super sad, this is going to be a very sad, tragic ending. I'm like, you're telegraphing it so hard, it's not really going to be a super sad, tragic ending, is it? Or else you wouldn't want us to know it's going to be a super sad, tragic ending. Then you kind of do, and then you kind of don't, which is very strange.
I mean, yeah, because, in the first scene, the doctor says, I always tear the last pages out of books. I hate endings.
Yeah, that was one of the few moments where, with Matt Smith, I was like, that's a weird way to deliver that line, where it's just like, that line felt really forced. It's like...
Well, could he deliver it any other way?
It's
a forced line.
It's like you've put it a good way. It's very self-aware.
Yeah.
That this is the last episode with Amy and Rory, and the episode knows that before it gets to the point where Amy and Rory are going to leave.
And I guess, again, my bias against it, and maybe some of what you're feeling, is just that part of it is that this isn't really how we needed these characters to leave. We didn't need it to be apocalyptic. And we kind of feel like they'd already kind of given up their natural conclusion. So,
like you said, the characters had already gotten to this point where it's like, this is
the fulfillment.
Which is what it makes like this whole section of the season feel so strange to me now, having seen them actually leaving, because this season feels so disjointed, and there's like Amy and Rory. It didn't need to be Amy and Rory. Other than for this episode, all those other I guess...
Power of 3 was about them.
Okay, yeah. But didn't feel like there was like this through thread of like, okay, this is where these character arcs are going across these episodes, building up to, okay, now there has to be some reason it's going to be like, something big's going to happen. It's like, all those, like, none of those episodes... like episode 2 did not have to take place after episode 1. Episode 2 could have been before. Episode 3 could have been in between them. Like the order of the episodes is completely arbitrary because there's nothing connecting them at all. So there's no character development threads going through them.
And in episodes 2 and 3, to a certain extent, it doesn't really even need to be Amy and Rory there. Certainly not 3. I would say 2, it is more about them because Rory's father is one of the main characters.
Oh, yeah.
But even then, Asylum of the Daleks, they don't really need to be there because that episode is about Oswin and the Doctor, and to me, that's why that to me is still probably the best episode of the season, because it was the one that started setting up new stuff.
Yeah,
that episode I assume is going to be very, very, very important come Christmas.
Yeah,
because Oswin became a Dalek and died. We're going to have to talk about that. At some point.
Although then also there's something with Amy and Rory that's still seems really weird to me about the season, where episode 1, Asylum of the Daleks, one of the huge subplots is Amy and Rory were like on the precipice of being divorced. Like the only thing that kept them from actually being divorced is that they got thrown into the plot of the episode before the papers got filed. They were right there. Nobody ever fucking talked about, like, Why does nobody talk about that? That's what made it feel like none of those episodes after that came place after that, because nobody talked about the fact that they seriously were like right there about to get divorced.
Sean, it's just wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Shit, for like actual issues they really had in the relationship. I mean, the whole reason they were going to get divorced is because they didn't communicate with each other. It's like they had some issues. Yeah, you need to. We had where season 6 ended, and they were like, okay, we're starting our life together, and that's how season 6 ended for Amy and Rory. It's like, we're really starting a life together now. And then season 7's opened up, and it's like they're having problems having a life together. So it's like you have this new thing where it's like they didn't realize they can't really settle down or something like that.
And that's what
they're going to do.
And that's a big issue for me in this episode, because that, to me, one of the things you and I both liked about Asylum of the Daleks is that by doing that, it opened a new avenue for, like, oh, this is a good narrative reason to have these characters back. There's a new direction to take them from an arc standpoint. Like, they've started their lives, they're having some trouble with it. Maybe these 5 episodes can be about them sort of working out those issues so they really can live together.
Yeah.
It's a good extension of that. But it was never mentioned again.
It never. It just was never brought up.
Never brought up. And
seems very conspicuous to me.
Right. It's never brought up. We get to episode 5, and then here's one of my biggest problems, is that they're sent back in time, and we're told they live the rest of their lives happily, but the beginning of the season was predicated on the idea that they could not do that!
Yeah, and then the rest of even Power 3 ended with them, like, being, like, kind of them going off with the Doctor again.
Admitting that they can't leave it alone.
Yeah, because they had this choice, are we going to stay here, or are we going to go with the Doctor? They're like, fuck it, we'll go with the Doctor.
So here's the question, is they get zapped back in time, how do they just sit there and be like, alright, well, we'll live like this for the next 60 years?
We're just taking, maybe Amy was just lying in the letter. Maybe they, like, immediately broke up. Maybe it's like it was actually really sad. It's like it was this really hard divorce. Like, none of them ever met anyone else they loved, and they were bitter, and they died alone. Maybe it really was this super tragic, depressing ending, and we just don't know. And then Amy couldn't bring herself to tell the Doctor that that's what happened, so she lied to him. I think I just came up with a better ending than using what actually happened than what actually happened.
But that's exactly the problem, is that it's too vague at the end.
We have no idea what actually happens to the characters after they leave.
Like, here's what I said.
You just know that they die. That's it.
Here's what I wanted, I was going to say at the end of that episode that would have made that ending resonate more for me, is while that letter's being read, do 5 clips. Like, 5, just a little montage of them living their, like, at each stage of life. Like, put some makeup on them and have them, like, in the last shot just, like, walking together, like, with canes or something. Just to show that they really did go through. Maybe show a baby. So I know she can't have babies, they can adopt, whatever. Yeah. You know, just something like that.
They can adopt. It's never brought up in episode 1.
Right. So just do something like that. A little, maybe, so Arthur Darvill's face can be seen one last time.
Maybe he gets a better last line than, like, oh, my name's on that grave.
I mean, you could be creative as just heard him saying, like, I love you, Amy, as he's dying. Like, something like that. Just a little reference to the legacy of these characters beyond what we were kind of given. And I mean, I understand the need at the end of the episode to focus on the Doctor side of things, because he's the main character. He's who we're going to be following moving forward. But I think you can do both. You can have the great shot of Matt Smith reading the letter and looking like he really is 1,000 years old in that moment. Mm-hmm. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and I think you would also do what we just suggested, is couple little clips.
Yeah.
So
breaking up, dying, sad, bitter, and alone.
Rory just, like, slitting his wrists in a bathtub.
Oh, come on, I wasn't going to go that far.
Okay.
That's...
All right. Anyway, so where do we want to take this next? You have some issues with sort of the tonal fixture of the ending.
Do we want to talk about this where... Yeah, it's very strange to me how they did the sort of the tone of the ending, and everyone I've seen, I mean, I don't know that many people in real life that watch Doctor Who, so most of the stuff I get is from online. Everyone online is all, I could barely hold back the tears, or it's like, this was me after watching the episode, and like a link of a YouTube video of some dude crying, and it's like this really funny, like over the top crying. It's like, really, you thought this wasn't a sad ending. To me, it wasn't sad almost at all. Like, it was a little sad for the Doctor. The Doctor kind of got over it pretty fast. And it was perfect. Like it was almost perfect for Amy and Rory. It ended how it was going to end for Amy and Rory, probably no matter what, unless it was an actual tragic ending. They live out the rest of their lives together. You saw they lived into their 80s, and she said, "Yes, we stayed together. It was all happy and bliss. Blah 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 blah. Everything was happy. It was a happy ending, but it was kind of not. Like it felt like it was trying to be a really tragic ending, and I guess a lot of people were affected by that. But to me, it was like trying to do both. It was trying to have a happy ending and trying to have a tragic ending, which is not a good idea to do. It's obviously that's not going to work, and it really didn't work for me, where I felt just kind of like completely detached at the end because there's this weird emotional dissonance between what the episode was really trying to do and what the episode was actually telling me happened. It's like,
and see,
that's not that sad episode.
And
just trying to affect me emotionally. It's like, that's kind of heartwarming.
Right, and I think that's where I come down on just the abruptness of the last couple minutes, is that I think the emphasis is wrong. The emphasis is on sort of the sadness of it, but the ending is, like you just said, is happy.
Yeah,
so that's this is what I was going to say, is that if you do the ending where I think you could do that ending where it seems really sad in the moment, and then the doctor finds the letter, and then I think you could transition very naturally if you spend another couple minutes into a happy ending, where maybe you do see a little montage of their lives together, and then you see that for the doctor and the audience, no, the emphasis of this ending really is they got to live their lives together, and then maybe the doctor can go back into his TARDIS and be content. That, to me, would be the emphasis of this ending that feels a little more sure of itself. As it stands, they just sort of try to play it for both all the time, and it doesn't work.
And having an ultimate, like, in what they tried to go for this, like, really shock ending with Rory, where it's like, oh, you think everything's okay, and then, nope, Rory gets sent back in time, that's the last you ever see of him, and then Amy has to go back in time too, and it's like, and it feels like that shock ending is supposed to be like, oh my god, Rory got sent back in time, it's like, this is terrible, this is a terrible thing that happened, then not really, because Amy goes back too. So it's not this really terrible, tragic thing that happened that's really sudden and shocking and holy shit. Because there's nothing, it's not this, like, I mean, I can't even count what happened to them as being examples of companion death. Like, to me, Adric is still the only companion that died. Because, I mean, yes, Amy and Rory are dead.
But all companions will die.
It's like, but so are probably Ian and Barbara from, like, his first companions. They were, like in their 40s in 1963.
The Brigadier's dead. We know the Brigadier's dead. Does that count as companion death?
Yeah, exactly. That's so, and it felt like they wanted it to be a companion death story. And I think because to me the theme of the episode, it was all about them trying to fight fate, basically, because they did all the fixed point in time bullshit. And maybe this is just me, but I would expect, like, the episode would be way more powerful if you can't fight your fate. Like, if that fails. That's what's powerful to me, emotionally. And that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to, you can't fight this, you can't stop this. And so, but they did that so hard that it was like, of course they can stop it now, because you're trying to tell me that they can't stop it. Would have been way better if they couldn't stop it. Even like you telegraph it that hard and they still can't stop it. I think that would have been really effective. Like, have an actual, like, this ending just didn't have any balls to me. I think that's what's really happened, where they didn't feel like they could pull off, like, a real heart-jerking, like, really tragic ending for these characters. They wanted to do it, but they pansied out at the end. That's what it felt like to me.
And I think, and I agree, and I probably think, as a whole, the ending probably would have been stronger if they had the balls to go one way or the other. Mm-hmm. But either way, it just goes back to what we kept saying at the beginning. I think these characters had already outlived their own arc, so if you had gone balls to the wall, done the tragic ending, I wouldn't have liked that either, because I think it would be the wrong emphasis for Amy and Rory.
Yeah,
it would have been better than this, because there would have been
it would have been better for the Doctor, I think. Like, would have given the Doctor better places to go than where it's like, for me, it just kind of feels like, okay, they're gone. Like, this is no different than almost any other companion leaving at all.
It was a little more sudden.
Yeah, it was just a little shocking. It was like, they're okay. They lived a happy life. Okay. I can move on now. Let's go pick up Boswin. And
again, that's another one of my problems is just how abrupt the actual last couple minutes of the episode are, because Amy says goodbye, and then basically there's a minute and a half left of the Doctor reading the letter, and it's so fast. It's like, what is the emphasis?
I don't know.
And again, I do think theoretically there are good strokes here to play. I just think the way they're played, or the way they're at least written and convoluted, doesn't necessarily work. Like, I think you could do this ending and make it really powerful where, they do have to live, they get to live out the rest of their lives, they have to do it separate from the Doctor and from their own time period, but you would have to do it in a different kind of episode, almost.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, it's the whole tone, there was this huge tonal dissonance from the end of the episode based on, like, everything else they were doing.
So, I guess...
I think we've ranted about the ending enough. I think we should talk about the
other aspects.
The other side of the episode than the Amy and Rory parts, which were the kind of weirder sides of the episode to me.
Well, as an Angel narrative, what did you think of this one?
I thought I had a really good idea. I mean, I think it would have been a really good standalone Weeping Angel episode if that could have been the focus of the episode.
I agree.
The Doctor investigating this, finding out, this is what this place is, and then the Doctor and his companions being trapped in that place and trying to figure out how to stop it.
I mean,
that does not involve paradox.
Yeah. Because I think it proved a couple times they can still make the Angels plenty scary. There were some really good atmospheric scenes here.
What I really liked about this is that they didn't have all the statues just be Weeping Angel statues. That always kind of bugged me. I always kind of thought it would be a lot cooler if some of the other statues started moving too, and they did that in this episode finally. They had like the little cherub statues that were kind of creepy.
So I thought there were a lot of good ideas there. I kind of like doing it in New York seems like the perfect setting for the Angel story. You could do a lot of good stuff there. So again, I agree, the sort of the broad strokes.
It could have been a good episode if that had just been the episode.
Right, and then all the coincidences to get them there wouldn't have mattered because it's just a story.
Yeah.
That happens. A lot of Doctor Who adventures are they wind up in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Look at the town called Mercy,
where
they just happen to be walking around the Wild West and stumble upon a town.
Western!
Yeah, they just stumble upon a town that has a crash-landed alien war criminal who has an alien bounty hunter after him. What a coincidence!
So, but here's a problem I have with the episode, and I think if it had been its own episode, you probably could have fleshed this out more and had some fun with it. But there is actually a human antagonist in this episode.
Kind of.
Kind of. We've forgotten about him, but that's what he's positioned as for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He's this apparently like collector of rare antiquities, if we want to go there. But, I mean, it's just like, what the fuck was that guy there for?
I don't know. I mean, it started with... What a weird trend of this season has been teasers, like the opening section of the episode up to the opening theme song. Their teasers are super fucking long this season. Like, it was like 4 minutes of this detective walking around New York investigating, like, he gets called in by the antagonist crime lord dude, whoever the fuck that guy is, to investigate the Angels, and you follow him for like 4 minutes doing fucking nothing, and then he dies. It's just like... Sean, I have 4 pages, I have 3.5 pages of notes. This that I'm showing you here is my notes on the opening. Look how many notes there are! Yeah, where, I mean, the teaser did serve its purpose that it introduced, okay, there are Weeping Angels, they're in Manhattan, we got that from the title, but whatever, and he goes into the hotel, and he finds his older self in the bed, like, okay, that would be a good teaser, but it just took fucking forever, I was like,
you know what it felt like?
Jesus Christ, just get on with it!
And you know what it felt like to me? It felt like one of those... They've been releasing, for the last 2 years, prologues online to episodes. Yeah. If this had been just a prologue piece, that would have been great. I would have
that's what... Yeah, no, you're right. That's totally what it felt like. It felt like it was just like this weird little standalone prologue thing, and then the actual episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just... I don't know. It just really bugged me this time.
And it bugged me, too, because this is the Amy and Rory finale episode. Why does it not start with Amy, Rory, and the Doctor? Like, that just seems like another weird emphasis. Like, that could have been a prologue, and you just start with them in the park and have that nice scene. That felt like the beginning of the episode to me.
Yeah.
Instead of this one, where the big reveal is the Statue of Liberty as an angel, which, you want to talk about that?
Okay, yeah, because we mentioned it a few times, we need to get into this. One... The Statue of Liberty being a weeping angel, it's this awkward thing where you're setting the story in Manhattan where statues come alive and kill people, and you're almost kind of forced to do it. You're forced to do it in one of 2 ways. Either you make a joke about it, or you actually fucking do it. I would have had gone let's make a joke about it, because the Statue of Liberty coming alive and attacking people is the hokiest fucking thing I have seen come out of this, like, century. It's... that would have been ludicrous back in the fucking, like, 60s Doctor Who. But I could have bought it in 60s Doctor Who because they would have, like, it would have been really terrible and cheesy and it would have been out of place. Here, it's like, why the fuck? Come on. There's so many... One, why would the Weeping Angel take on the form of the Statue of Liberty? It's fucking gigantic! The whole point of the Weeping Angel is that when you look at them, they can't move. So why would you be one of the biggest fucking statues in the world? So that everyone can see you, so you can't fucking... Like, there's no way the Statue of Liberty would have been able to move. There's no way there's not one person glancing in the Statue of Liberty's direction at any time in Manhattan. Like, that is... Someone is looking at the Statue of Liberty at any given moment of time in Manhattan.
Absolutely.
It's like the most populous fucking city in the United States with a huge fucking statue. Someone is looking at that. And even if someone isn't, once it gets into the city, someone sure as shit is noticing the Statue of Liberty walking around fucking Manhattan. It's like it's Ghostbusters 2.
That's what I was about to say.
It's supposed to be serious and scary. Because you've got Weeping Angels, which is one of the most effective, probably the most effective new monster in Doctor Who for the new series. Like, Blink is a great episode. They're frightening. It's a great idea. Making it the Statue of Liberty, that's fucking hilarious. That's not scary. That goes completely against what the Weeping Angels are.
What I was thinking is that it could be a great, like, closing moment to just a standalone version of this episode, where, like, they save the day, and then you would have, like, a slow zoom in on the statue, and then it would suddenly, like, there would be a quick cut, and it would have a scary mouth, and you'd end. Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. There's a story. Even if, like, I could even see if this was, like, the whole episode was just the Weeping Angel story, and, like, the Statue of Liberty, that was, like, the last thing that gets thrown at them is, oh my god, the Statue of Liberty is a Weeping Angel. Maybe. But, like, they throw it in the teaser, and then it comes back again, and both times, you know they just built a fucking set, because both times, they used the fucking shot twice of, like, it's focusing on the person on the roof, they're kind of, like, looking in the direction of the camera, and behind them, what's that big green thing? It's the Statue of Liberty scowling at them and making a meanie face. Like, oh, yes, oh, I'm so scared. The Statue of Liberty doesn't do anything! It just looks at them! It's so... Like, the Statue of Liberty thing was just stupid. It was really fucking stupid. And I don't know why they... I mean, okay, I know why they did it, because they thought it would be cool.
Yeah.
It wasn't cool.
Alright. So we've talked about the Melody Malone book already. Do we have any more we need to say on that?
About the book, not really.
Not really. Yeah. Except that it is available to buy in bookstores now. Did you know that? It's out.
That doesn't... I don't want to read that. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Like, I kind of think it's funny that the BBC, this non-profit government organization, does all these tie-in, like, merchandising things. It's kind of funny. Not a bad thing. I mean, it's kind of fun.
It's just, that just seems like a weird... I don't know, it just seems like a weird decision to make to, like, read that book.
Yeah. In any case. But there are plenty of other fine Doctor Who novels out there. And I'm serious about that. Lots of good ones. You can go read. Anyway, so let's see. We're looking through this. We talked about the collector guy who's in, like, half a scene with River. Yeah. I think it's time to talk about River Song in this episode. Oh, yeah. Do you think this was a particularly good use of River Song, or do you think you forgot that she was in it the moment the episode ended?
I forgot that she was in it.
Me too. I didn't even mention her in my review, and I've always mentioned Alex Kingston in my reviews because she's great, and she's good here too, but she's got nothing to do. I mean, I do agree that in Amy and Rory's last episode, she should be there because she's their daughter.
Yeah, but she does, like, nothing with Amy and Rory.
You have to give her more to do. Yeah.
Like, the most time she has with them is the scene where she has with Rory, that he just happens to pop up right there.
And actually, I do want to talk about this, because it is a frustration for me that the Rivers, I think Season 6, Part 1, we agreed on this, did a phenomenal job building to that revelation that she's their daughter, putting that all together. It was really cool. And then it never really followed up on that. And now that Amy and Rory are gone, we can never follow up on that.
Yeah.
And they didn't even take this episode to do that. It really just kind of was a drive-by thing. And then also River's presence made me a little frustrated that this season hasn't addressed anything that happened in Season 6, basically.
Yeah.
River is the Doctor's wife. That's a big deal. Mm-hmm. And it's like, here it's just a couple of flirty jokes that were well played, and they were fun to watch.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want to see more of that story, and then at the end, why does River not want to just venture in the TARDIS with the Doctor? They're married!
I don't know.
Hang out, guys!
I don't know what River was doing for the entire episode. Like, she was really mad at the Doctor. She had this whole thing where it's like, oh, I'm aging, and he's not aging. It's like, you're like a half Time Lord thing, too. Like, can River not regenerate anymore?
No, she can't.
Okay,
let's kill her. She used all her regenerations to regenerate the Doctor.
Okay, that's right. I was trying to remember if that actually happened or if I was forgetting something.
Yeah.
So she can't regenerate anymore, but it's still... She's probably going to live to be 1,000 years old. Like, she's still partially a Time Lord.
And it's something I don't think they should address anyway, because just from a continuity error, and I don't say this to disparage Alex Kingston, she's a beautiful woman, she is noticeably older now than she was in Silence in the Library. And that is the last moment of her life. Mm-hmm. That's when she dies. She's older now. That's fine. That's just a production thing. Yes. But why turn it into a plot point then? Because if someone goes back and tries to watch the loop, then it's like, oh, that's her youngest point. Yeah. So this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and it's just, I don't know, and it just felt like it was so unnecessary. Just all of a sudden, River's in this episode. This is the last episode for Amy and Rory, and all River does is bitch out the Doctor. Like, after they, for like the first section that they have together, then she's just mad at the Doctor a bunch.
And it's...
Why?
And, this is sort of a thing with River, is I do want to see the kind of outcome of this whole marriage thing, and sort of the story that Moffat's built, because Silence in the Library did promise back then that she was an actual companion of his for a while. Mm-hmm. So why not have... That's what... These 5 episodes for me would have been better if Amy and Rory were gone and you had just a nice 5-episode chunk with River and the Doctor. I don't necessarily need them to be together for a whole season or era of the show, but 5 episodes would have been fun, with just them journeying together, and then maybe have an event that convinces her that she wants to be more sporadic in her appearances. Then you fulfill what Silence in the Library told us, and you're able to follow up on the end of Series 6. Yeah. And the end of Series 6 was more about River than it was about Amy and Rory. So...
Yeah, no, I agree. Although I don't... It's hard for me to see River Song in the, normal companion position. Like that... I don't think she'd be a very good fit for that.
I agree, but I think you could do it for 3, 4, or 5 episodes. Yeah. Because there really was no normal companion position for these 5 episodes. I mean, in a lot of them, he had other people along for the ride. I think A Town Called Mercy would be more... would be more entertaining to me if instead of Amy and Rory just not being used for 45 minutes, you had River being sarcastic about the thing for the whole time. That would have been fun.
Yeah, okay. So, I can see that one.
Yeah. Anyway, so we talked about River. Anything else to say there?
Not really.
All right, so they look at the chapters. They find Rory in the basement, bunch of stuff, and then they're going to jump off the cliff, or jump off the building. Yeah. Not a cliff. That would have been cool, too.
Statue of Liberty.
I have to emphasize one more time just how good that line is, where Amy says, "You think you'll just come back to life?" And he says, "When don't I?" Great. And so nice scene there. Paradox created, and we're to the ending. So I think that's everything. Here's a question.
Okay.
So,
question.
We both agree it wasn't necessarily a great thing or a terrible thing, but we both kind of liked the thrust of that last letter that he reads. Mm-hmm. A nice little memory, bringing it back to young Amy.
Yeah.
Nice way to end it. But in Amy, she does this recount of the sort of the greatest hits of Amy and the Doctor. This is not a bad thing, but did you find it a little funny that she leads off with the pirate episode?
Yeah,
which is the worst episode of her run on the show.
Yeah, I immediately spotted that. I was like,
double take,
really doing Curse of the Black Spot? That's remember when we were pirates? Oh, yeah, no, I remember.
No one remembers that.
That was such a bad episode.
And that's literally the worst episode of the Matt Smith run, right?
Yeah, so far? Yeah, definitely.
And so that's the lead off in her greatest hits collection.
Yeah.
The other ones made sense. They had Van Gogh, they had I don't remember all of them. They had the big ones.
Okay, yeah.
They did not have the whole we relit the entire universe, but
didn't quite pick up on that point.
But she did mention she fell in love with a guy who waited 2,000 years for her. Thanks for finally mentioning that.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Finally, it's just we get a little bit of closure on the fact that Rory waited 2,000 fucking years. I mean, if you take seriously what the Doctor actually says his age is, Rory waited 800 years longer than the Doctor's been alive, according to the Doctor's own estimations.
Yes.
That just drives me insane how ridiculous that is, and they just never really properly felt.
I mean, I feel like that they could have even mentioned that in the scene where he's going to jump off the building. It's like, I'm already 2,000 years old, baby. I'm ready. I've been around a long time. I can go. Anyway, so I bet Rory was probably in a good place by the time he died. He'd lived a long time.
Yeah, he lived a long fucking time. He saw the rise and death of nations.
Yes. Which makes him the most badass of them all, I think.
Yeah. It makes it a huge disservice that he doesn't get a proper send-off in this episode.
Nope. All right.
But I feel I have to mention, because it bugged the shit out of me again, they didn't do it super overtly, but they did make a Doctor Who joke.
I know.
But they fucking...
I'm surprised it took you this long to get to it.
Yeah, well, because it wasn't like River into the episode yelling at Matt Smith, Doctor Who! Like, that would have opened it up if they
didn't have Amy's last letter, like, they fade to black and then come back and it says, P.S. Doctor Who?
Doctor Who! Doctor Who!
And you have Matt Smith reading it out loud. Doctor Who!
But yeah, this time it was just sort of the normal how the show does it. It used to be like every 5 years where, it's the name of the show, nobody knows what the Doctor's name is, we'll make a Doctor Who joke. It's like, fair enough. Not fair enough anymore. They make it... I mean, they've made one at least every season since New Who started.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's just like...
It's a plot point.
It's all over the place. And it's just... I don't like it. So I don't like it. It's almost as bad as making the Statue of Liberty a Weeping Angel. And then not even doing anything with that.
All right, so I think we've covered this episode in pretty great depth. And I think we've also sort of talked about our overall thoughts on this 5-episode chunk as a whole. But let's take a step back and just say, Sean, Season 7, Part 1, what is your verdict?
Not that good so far. I mean, this particularly as a season, I mean, I get that they're trying to do standalone episodes, but...
That doesn't mean you have to cut continuity out entirely.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't mean there can't be any connection between any of the episodes. And that could work okay if it wasn't also tied into the Amy and Rory stuff. Like having Amy and Rory's last chunk of time on Doctor Who be these 5 episodes is a disservice to that format of let's just do standalone episodes. That would work fine if you just had normal new companions to run with. Doesn't work that well when you're sending off the companions for this era of Doctor Who.
I agree 100%. I think there are episodes in this chunk I enjoy a hell of a lot. I mean, there are very good episodes in here, 1 or 2, or even 3, depending on how much the end of Power of 3 bothered you. Yeah,
that line,
a lot for me too. All right. Anyway,
at least the Statue of Liberty didn't make some stupid fucking joke about. We angels are taking Manhattan. At least that didn't fucking happen. Thank God that didn't fucking happen.
All right. So anyway, but yeah, that's my ultimate verdict. Is that I think from an arc standpoint, it was an abject failure to me because it pushed these characters further than they needed to go and disserved them in how this format was running. But also, I think the episodes themselves were pretty erratic. I mean, I think episodes 1 and 2 were by far the best ones. Asylum with the Daleks was really good. Dinosaurs on a Spaceship was really good.
I agree.
And then Town Called Mercy was mediocre. Power of 3 was 2/3 really good, 1/3 what the fuck is going on?
Then 1% fuck that line.
Yeah.
Can't forget that percent.
Yes. It's a big percent.
Yeah.
And then you have one episode that's pretty good in a vacuum and endlessly frustrating from a larger perspective.
Yeah.
Which is really, to me, all that matters when you're talking about the last episode for Amy and Rory.
Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, not so hot on these 5 episodes. And I feel like because they do encapsulate the last of an era of the show, you can't... I'm not going to be able to say, I'll wait for judgment for the next 9 episodes to see how this goes. I really can't do that, because the next 9 are a different season to me. I mean, there's been no introductory plot here, so the next 9 are going to be something different, because they've got different characters, and it's going to be the Doctor dealing with different issues. And maybe the next 9 will finally start picking up on some of the stuff from Season 6. Maybe we'll finally find out how the TARDIS blew up. One day.
Yeah, we still have all the silence. We still have all that stuff going on, way in the back burner.
How much do you want to bet that the TARDIS blowing up is directly related to Matt Smith's regeneration? Into the 12th Doctor? That'll be what happens. Is like his regeneration is
yeah.
like so powerful it like ripples back in time and blows up the TARDIS in the past.
I can see that. That's might be what it is.
Okay.
Either that or it's Teslecta.
I mean, if we haven't gotten to it yet, that's what it's going to be, right? Or it's going to be like Stephen Moffat is in this for the long haul. 17th Doctor, TARDIS blows up. I mean, that would be impressive, actually, at that point. 20 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So.
Yeah, but
Are you, however, looking forward to sort of a fresh start here with the Christmas special?
Yeah, because I do think the biggest problem with these episodes have been Amy and Rory's sort of hanging over them and that knowledge of these are going to be their last episodes. It's like, it was just, I think that was a really bad decision.
I agree.
Throw that into the first 5 episodes of a season. That's just such an awkward placement for this sort of like
especially
story.
Especially when they had an exit pre-built.
Yeah.
Just one season.
They already did it. They decided to do it again 5 episodes at the beginning of a season. And now it's just going to make the rest of the season feel short to me, probably.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess this is what I'm going to say. I think if I were to come down and say what is the best episode of this chunk of episodes, I think it's probably Asylum of the Daleks.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it set up a new dynamic. And it was mostly freed of Amy and Rory sort of hanging over it. It had the divorce stuff. But because the episode was so centric on Oswin, who was new and exciting and had a really fresh chemistry with Matt Smith, it was really exciting and made you want to see more. Like, where does this go? But we had to wait 4 episodes. And now we'll get to see where that goes in the Christmas special. And so I'm very much eager for the Christmas special. But because I think I do. I mean, that's one of the nice things here is that we don't have to dread what's coming next. Like, is this going to be as good as Amy and Rory? Because we already know Jenna Louise Colesman is really good on her own and with Matt Smith. So we know there will be someone suitable in the TARDIS come Christmas.
Yes. So hopefully the.
Did you see the little teaser for the special at the end of this episode?
Yeah, it was like
3 shots. It's literally just 3 shots. So anyway, hope it's good.
Yeah, I'm just kind of sad that we have to be so down on this.
I know.
Section of Doctor Who,
because it's funny. I don't think this is like a all-time bad stretch, and it's just a little. It's only 5 episodes. I mean, that's what we have to remember. Is that if you were to look at seasons we probably really like, there are bad 5-episode stretches in individual seasons. This one just feels stands out more because it's contained. It doesn't sour me on the show as a whole or anything. That's all we're saying. It's just
I've watched. This is my 33rd fucking season of the show. Yeah, I'm not stopping at this point because of a bad 5-episode run.
And we're not even saying
I watched the Colin Baker era. This is nothing.
And I think we're getting almost too negative here. There were things we really, really liked about these 5 episodes. But there just feels like there's just one sort of key choice they made, which was to make them about Amy and Rory, that felt like a misstep. Yeah. And that misstep colored everything, and it's just kind of snowballed from there. Mm-hmm. So it's not even, it's kind of interesting, because it's not even a huge mistake they made, it's just sort of one miscalculation that went further and further wrong for us.
Yeah, it's like kind of snowballed.
Yeah.
Especially because the first episode of the season promised a new direction with Asylum of the Daleks and their divorce thing, and it just went away. It's really frustrating to me. It's also making me wonder if the whole thing where we kept on picking out in the episodes, like the Doctor keeps on doing like really dark, like, oh, he killed all these Daleks, or he fucking just shot at like a dude out, an unarmed man, an unarmed cripple into space and had him blown up by missiles. Like, that's a pretty severe thing for the Doctor to do. I wonder if that's just a huge coincidence, because it seems like if it was going to be picked up on, this would have been the episode to pick up on that. Like, it seems weird that after this, then we would explain, oh, this is why the Doctor's been really dark. It's like, I will have basically forgotten that by the time Christmas comes around, because it wasn't important to this section of episodes.
I'm positive it's a coincidence at this point, because it was never picked up on again, and
it wasn't even, like, alluded to in this episode at all.
Right.
So.
And really, it's sort of funny, because A Town Called Mercy addressed it on its own. It addressed it all on its own, so you can just assume that was that writer wanting to explore that issue on his own.
Yeah.
In Asylum of the Daleks, you can just kind of write it away as
He's fighting the Daleks.
Stephen Moffat probably just didn't consider that the Doctor would be maybe have some mercy towards Daleks because they're fucking Daleks, whatever.
Yeah, that's not a huge deal to me, that one.
Right. So the only real outlier is
Dinosaurs on a fucking spaceship, where once again he shoots in. I mean, to be fair, the dude was a huge asshole,
yes.
and he committed almost genocide. He killed a bunch of Silurians, but still, an unarmed cripple shot into space so he could be blown up by missiles.
Doctor was having an interesting day. He was just like, I've got some energy. I'm going to kill this guy. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like I could bring you into custody. I could say, like, humans are right fucking over there. But there's this red button, and it's really shiny. Boop.
Yep. And then we had Power of Three, and you want to say the line for us one more time?
No. Just fucking no.
Okay.
No.
All right. So, is there anything more to say, or have we covered this pretty fucking thoroughly?
I think we've covered the subject pretty thoroughly.
Yep.
I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with the rest of the season, and I wonder if other people are going to come around to our point of view on this episode, or if we will someday realize that we were horribly wrong and come back and listen to this podcast and laugh. I don't think that's going to happen, but who knows? It's strange to me.
Doctor Who knows.
Doctor Who! Fucking shit.